Let's move this back to sort of the kind of working life, really. So in the Vidurniti, it states that who extends his tasks uselessly, i.e. without any planning, doubts everyone and creates a delay in the tasks that are to be performed quickly, is a fool. Now, Arjun, question to you, right? How should we utilize our time and energy effectively at work or in our career planning?
So I think I was quite lucky that I'm a planner, because I don't like to leave things last minute, or even if I do leave things last minute when I'm studying and things, I like to have a plan in action. Whether I follow it or not is a different story. So actually, I'll just tell you a story from my experience, which was when I was 18, left home for the first time, went to university, and within a few weeks I realised I'm using my calendar a lot in planning because I want to have the best studying experience, I want to have the best social experience, I want to do everything, which a lot of students do when they start. And I set myself 5, 6, 7 goals. I said, these are my 7 goals. And at university, as long as I tick these 7 goals, I'm happy. Whatever happens, these 7 goals are going to be my focus. And then outside that, if I make friends or meet people or, socialize, that's another side of the story, as long as I keep these goals in mind. And I forgot about it, left it, and then got to the end of university. And I hadn't really thought about it. I'd put it on a note on my laptop. It was just there in the background. I didn't really look at it every day. And when I graduated, I looked back and I said, actually, I might not have done all 7 of them, but most of them, I've ticked them and I've achieved that. And I hadn't had to do that consciously by looking at it every day or by thinking about it. But it was that planning and planting that seed early on, which actually enabled me to achieve my goals. So yeah, I think forward planning is extremely important, and we need to do it earlier rather than later. What I always say to my younger brother is plan, but whether you follow that plan or not, it doesn't mean you failed or you've succeeded, but at least you've got a plan, and then you can always change it. You can always discard it and make a new plan, but always have one in your mind or ahead of you.
Okay. Well, but we talk about this a lot when we kind of meet for our kind of talks. What's your thoughts, or what's your kind of advice?
I think what Arjun's actually said is just fantastic, because you didn't have to look at your list on a regular basis, but nevertheless, when you finished your university and you checked against that list, you thought, virtually you've achieved all of those. And the reason why I feel that you might not have actually had to look at it on a regular basis is that, firstly, there was clarity. That clarity of purpose, what you want to do. And with that came the commitment that no matter what, this is what I'm supposed to do as a student, right? And you focused on that without having to look at the list on a daily basis, because it was from your heart. And when we do things that are sincere in their attitude and intention, and there's clarity and commitment, then really, everything just flows. You don't have to stop and start, somebody doesn't have to tap you on the back and say, which parents normally do. What are you doing staying out this late? Don't you have to go to university today? Or don't you have any classes and things like that? Nobody probably needed to do those kind of things for you, to prompt you, because it was just part of your natural way of actually being a student. And the more we learn to do that, plan with that clarity of purpose. What is it that we want to achieve in our life? With those higher goals in mind, then things will work out.
Rohit, I still got prompted a lot. I still got told, "What are you doing?" But I think the key is they were my goals. They weren't they were not my parents' goals. They're not my brother's goals. And I think a lot of times we think we have to aspire to achieve other people's checklists, and we have to do what other people expect of us. But really, if you want to do something, write it down, and that's your own goal, and it's no one else's problem.
I think that's important, actually. Write it down. It's underrated how important that is to write something down, because the process of writing is, you talked about clarity, it actually clarifies your thinking. So even though you've never looked at that paper again, the process of it has had already sort of embedded something in your mind. Yes. Of actually putting it down on paper. And it's a powerful thing to do. A tip there, or a hint for others to use, is to plan, but not just in their heads, but on paper as well.
It goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is this study on how many people actually set goals and how many actually write it down. So they have goals and how many write it down. You know, it's 20 odd percent would have goals and only 15 odd percent would write them down. But when you think about how much of the population just isn't actually setting goals, they might set New Year's resolutions, but as we know, 80-90% of people, in 3 months' time, you talk to them about their resolutions and not interested anymore, because it's not come with that sincerity of purpose and clarity about what they want to achieve in life. They just going through life in an impulsive way. I need to do this because I've been told to do that, or I'm following somebody else that has succeeded in this particular, ignoring their swadharma. And when you ignore your swadharma, you might have short-term success and happiness, but longer term, you are going to find that you're finding obstacles. Things are just not actually giving you that joy, and you're not able to reach your potential.
So goals with purpose is what we're kind of saying. Now, Pavan, obviously you're head of M&A. How did you get there? Is that a goal that you kind of had? How did you utilize your time, your thinking, your approach to get to where you actually kind of got to?
So I was very young and naive at the time. So I actually knew I wanted... Now, look, I didn't do particularly great at school. I did well, actually, but I didn't do brilliantly. I didn't go to a red brick university. I went to very humble, modest city university. But I knew I wanted to do investment banking. Now, why did I want to do it? Because there's a lot of money in it, I'm being frank, at the time. But I didn't just say I want to do it, because a lot of what I see in, I'm going to sound old now, but in the younger generations, they just want to do it and that's it. We're not really put the effort in. Whereas what I did every single day was read the Financial Times, cover to cover, every single article, every single page. And so by doing that, I became more knowledgeable than people within banking, because they don't have the time to read all that. I must have done about 80 applications, got about 8 interviews, and from that, luckily got 3 offers. It was not easy, but it meant, having something you want to do, you have to put effort into it. And I had to put effort into it. Now, if someone told me, by the way, to go into investment banking, you need to have gone to a private school, you need to have gone to Oxford, Cambridge, LSE, and you need to know a thing or two about the deals that are going on in the market, then I would never have done that. So in a way, my naivety helped that, I could still aspire for that career, despite not having the kind of requisite, so the background, I would say, definitely the background. So anyway, and that's why I think, and plus when you go to assessment centres and things like that, I was able to talk about actual current events with a lot of knowledge and insight that meant, so I kind of sneaked in that way. But even thereafter, it was much more about doing a good job. So I felt very grateful that I have this job, this career. And so I was very committed to it, worked very hard at it, very diligently, rather than taking it for granted. What happens thereafter is, I think I've realised quite late on in my career, actually, that doing a good job isn't enough. Working hard isn't enough. In any sort of corporation organisation, it's also about the relationships and the profile that you build and you develop along the way. So that's something I then started working on and did an MBA to sort of help me with that process as well. And so, I'm not sure that there's more I can say about that. But one challenge I will touch on that in Ravi is being a practicing Hindu. So we're a very traditional Orthodox family that I came from. Certainly my mother was, and raised us in such a way. Those things weren't necessarily congruent, i.e. an investment banking career and traditional practicing Orthodox Hindu. How I kind of had to navigate the two was not always easy. In fact, early on I was very apologetic about my faith. Very sort of keep it to myself, not really tell much to anybody else. Go along to, the dinner parties and the drinks and things like that, but not let anyone notice that I'm not drinking. And not let anyone notice that my dietary requirements are very different to everybody else's. But I think then there was a turning point for me, which was, and I think this is important for everyone to, turning point for me, actually, no, this is who I am, this is my identity. And that's not in contrast to my profession. So the more I bring myself into this professional life, into this job, into this career, the more effective I will be. And I think many of us would have faced that as well, because the question of identity then comes up.
Okay. Anything to add on that, or any kind of comments?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the world is now different. There is a lot more acceptance of people with different backgrounds, with different dietary requirements, different views about things. So things are a lot easier for the next generation, our children's generation, are not finding that they can't speak about what they value. But it does come down to values. And what actually I feel is that for our generation, we had to compromise our values to fit in, so that we had to, to be seen to be part of the organization that we were working in, or part of the group that we were associating with. And as you rightly said, you don't say everything that you totally believe in or you follow. But now there is a lot more understanding, and I think it's good that that understanding is there. And we've recognized that wherever we've compromised, we've lost our authenticity. And when we've lost our authenticity, it niggles us. And sooner or later, we come to terms with the fact that, look, no more am I just going to hide this now. I'm going to be what I truly believe I am, and I'll follow that.
I think that's right. Certainly what I've observed is we, as a community, Hindu community, Indian community, call it what you want, we've tried too hard to assimilate. I mean, some extremes we've changed our names. Bhaven, okay, why don't you just call me Bob? It's easier. And rather than make it difficult for the other person, and then our behaviours, our even culture, we start then assimilating the culture of what is the majority might be. But I do hope you're right. I mean, I've certainly seen signs of it where perhaps, Arjun, you could touch on this a lot more, given you're closer to that generation, but we're more confident of our culture and our tradition.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I started my new job in September, and I've noticed a small but seismic shift in how people perceive Hindus. So when I was kind of maybe 10, 15 years ago, people are a bit embarrassed. You don't really want to say your religion. And then the way it's taught at schools is a real negative for us, because Hinduism, from page 1 of the textbook in RS, it's associated with superstition, associated with caste, associated with a lot of confusion, and it doesn't explain who we are in a simple, easy to navigate, positive way. But when I started my job, one of my colleagues said, "Oh, so what religion are you?" I said, "I'm a Hindu," and he said, "Oh, that's one of the cool ones." And I went, "Wow, this is news to me." But that's how people who are not from a Hindu background are starting to perceive Hindus, which is really nice. And I think it's things like mindfulness, mental health, yoga, meditation, things which are innately Hindu or come from Hindu culture, which people are appreciating more and using more in the West. And I think slowly, I hope that only continues. And I hope that the curriculum changes and the media is a bit nicer to us as well, because that will make a huge difference to the future generations.